I want to get to the next story because this is something I read the other day. And yes, for all the complaining we do about inflation rising, this news study really sheds a light on just how difficult this is to live through these times now, especially for people, most brutal for people with lower incomes. So Eve-Lyne Couturier is an Irish researcher. So that's the institution here for socioeconomic information and research. And some of the numbers dug up here are really eye-opening. So I want to just have her run down some of these. Eve-Lyne, thank you so much for being on this afternoon. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So you have a new study, and basically, I guess just off the top, what it shows that inflation has risen faster than the income needed to, as you say, live with dignity. Can you run down, first of all, what that means and what those numbers represent?
Of course. At Iris, we have been calculating what we call the living income for 10 years now. And what we do is try to figure out what is the basket of goods that is and services that is needed to have a life outside of poverty. And we look at 7 different localities in Quebec, in the province, and 3 types of households, and we try to see exactly what they have to spend in all those categories to be have a life outside of poverty. That means a life where you can make choices, where you have some money to have social activities, to participate socially in your communities. Also, there's money for vacation, money for unexpected events. So all that makes a living income. And we found that for a single person living alone in Quebec, it's between $30,700 and $43,600 to be able to have a life of dignity. In Montreal, it's $38,400, it's $38,400, which is quite a lot. In fact, Montreal is the second city, the most expensive from our calculation because of housing.
Which begs the question, where is the most expensive?
The most expensive is Sept-Îles. It's very far. It's a far region. And the need to have a car when you're alone, when you're a single-person household, explains the difference. So it's the big difference that we see in all our study, in all our calculation, every living income. The transportation and the housing will determine how expensive it is to live in a city. So the city where it is the less expensive for the 3 types of household is Trois-Rivières, and it is because the housing is so cheap.
So if you want to stretch $1, Trois-Rivières is the place to do that. I'm curious, though, you're just talking about now as single people. You also broke it down for families.
Yes, for a family of 4, so 2 adults and 2 kids in daycare, it's between $72,800 at Trois-Rivières and $86,600 at Sept-Îles. And in Montreal, again, the second highest income needed to get outside of poverty at $82,000.
I know I saw the figures, but I'm stunned just to hear you say that. In Montreal, family of 4, just to be above the poverty line, you need to bring in $82,000?
It's really to get outside of the poverty, and that's the difference between the living income and the poverty measure. Because when we talk about the market-based the market-based basket, we're talking about living the strict minimum to be able to answer your needs. Below that line, you are not capable of eating well. You're not capable of buying rent or anything. What we're talking is, how do you get outside of precarity? Because we never had a line in Quebec or in Canada to talk about what is the line to be able to have a comfortable life, a modest life, but comfortable life. So in Montreal, we think that a family of 4 need at least $82,000 to have this life of decency, life of choice, life of social participation in their community.
And do we know what the average we're seeing in Montreal would be what are they making for a typical family?
We don't have that data. We really concentrated ourselves on how to decide where poverty stops. Traditionally, when we look at what is the percentage of the population that is below that line, below living income, it's between 15 and 25%. It really varies. In 2020, because of all the subsidies, it was more around 15%, but usually it runs around 20%. So it's 1 in 5 person that is not able to have at least the money needed for decency. But it's important to say that what we calculated based on real costs still underestimates what we need to be able to pay rent. This year, this is a novelty that we had in 2024. We added a moving penalty to take into account that people who move in the year usually spend a lot more income on rent than people who have stayed for a long period of time in the same apartment. And if we base our calculation on the data from the 2021 census in Montreal, a family of four would need to spend at least 25% more in rent. And even when we take into account that with the data from the CMHC, who looks at all the rents in all Montreal, we're talking about an apartment of 5.5 rooms for $1,500, which is almost impossible to find in central location in Montreal.
So you're talking about moving, just that idea that you would have to move, you're looking at your expenses going up by roughly 25% in terms of housing.
Exactly. Wow. And when you live around poverty, the idea that you will need to move and you will need to find more money to be able to spend on a housing that is comparable to what you have right now is it makes you feel a lot of anxiety. Sure. It makes you feel like you don't have any choice. So it's important to take into account the money needed to have something that is decent on the market right now. And even that's almost impossible to get.
We're going to run out of time. I want to go through one other figure, and I think this is one of the more startling figures in your report, the idea of minimum wage. So we know the minimum wage has gone up. We're up back to about $15.50, I guess, an hour, roughly. You're suggesting... $15.75. Okay. You're suggesting in your study, in order to get above that poverty line, you need to earn how much an hour?
In Montreal, for a single person, it would be $27 an hour for full-time work.
Yikes. We're not even close. That's $12 away in minimum wage from what we need.
And also the hike in minimum wage is only 3.3%, while the inflation of the last year is 4.5%. And the data from our study shows that the living cost, the cost of living around poverty, it rises much higher than inflation because the most important categories of spending are housing and food, and they are subject to inflation much more than other categories.
Well, as I said, it's very much an eye-opening kind of a survey, so good on you for having done it. Hopefully governments will start paying attention to this, and maybe there'll be some better news coming because, as I said, it was hard to believe some of these numbers when you actually see them for the first time. Eve-Lyne, thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciate it.
My pleasure. Goodbye.